think we have time for one more question. Oh, sorry, she has the mic.
Pamela Peters. I'm an environmental economist specializing in sustainability globally for more than 15 years. And I focus a lot on the consumer, on waking them up and getting them up in arms for action. I first want to congratulate you all for your wonderful contributions. And I wanted to use one of the last speakers, the president of the World Bank, had a wonderful conclusion where he spoke about his personal motivation, not his economic motivation, but his personal. He has children. And he says, I do not want to say to my grandchildren one day, I knew. Each of you have a personal experience out of your business. What is your personal motivation? Is there a personal motivation because you know some facts and you know there is an urgency? Thank you.
Do you want to start from the start with you?
Well, Swiss Re has decided that this is one of the most important outward-reaching initiatives that we have, and it's both formed our business, where we put our resources, where we spend our advocacy dollars. So we've just decided that this is not only an important issue for our business and the trends in natural catastrophe losses, but it's the right thing to do going forward. And I think that goes deeply into all the board members and the management, their families, et cetera. I think one of the points you're sort of touching on is one of the things that's really lacking is how do you get the message right? How do you galvanize people? Obviously, Sandy is a galvanizing event. You pull everybody together, they focus on the issue. If you look back at other natural catastrophes, there's Hurricane Hugo, there'll be a response out in Colorado. Every one of these is local and creates a response. But what's been lacking is getting that national message. I mean, I come from the financial services industry, and I find it almost interesting or humorous that everybody on the street in the US or in Europe will tell you that the banking system is systemic to the government and that it's very costly and problematic. Well, dealing with natural disasters is much more costly to governments, and nobody looks at it that way. So there's a real getting that message across, getting people to galvanize around this and taking it the next step to be able to implement the things we've been talking about.
Okay.
I think the city itself has recognized these risks since, for a number of years now, since the Plan NYC was initially released in 2007, and began to think about these risks and what it meant for our citizens and what it meant for our communities, and really identified that we can't afford to not do something about this. And the plans we've put in place certainly require more than just the city. It's an effort for all of us to work together on advancing these plans, whether it's state and federal government, whether it's the philanthropic community, whether it's private industry. I think we all recognize that if the projections are true out in a very long-term sense, that these risks we face are existential. And I think we collectively can't see these risks hitting our city and having done nothing about it. And I think that's really what drives us as a city to want to make this better. On the personal note, of course, I have children as well and want to leave them a better city and a better nation and a better world. And that drives us, and all of us that work on this issue within our office, we love the city and we want to see it take the right steps. So that's what's driving us, I think.
Well, for us, Rockefeller Foundation is 100 years old, founded for the betterment of humankind. And we really feel, my colleagues and I, as we look at this moment in the 21st century, that the two most important strategic approaches for doing that are building resilience to the shocks and stresses, whether they're climate shocks or economic shocks or social shocks, which seem to be increasing with frequency over time in this century. And the second goal is to expand opportunity for more people to build more equitable growth. And so we live and breathe these ideas. We're passionate about bringing them. We're America's first global philanthropy. But we have our major office in New York. We're committed to the city of New York. And so we share personal passion about New York, but we share a philanthropic passion towards the world. And philanthropy, unlike all of these other sectors, may be the real source of risk capital here. We don't have the next election cycle. We don't have the next quarterly earnings. And so we don't have some of the extrinsic pressures that make it more difficult at times for really well-motivated people in the public and private sector to do the right things, as our panelists do, and as we know so many of the companies and civic and public leaders that we've heard from do. But we are the country's risk capital. We're the tax privileged dollars, and shame on us if we don't invest it in tackling some of these big and urgent problems. So that's what drives us.
Okay.
Well, I have the privilege of working for the president, and he, in his inaugural address for this term, made clear that this was a very personally felt issue, that addressing the climate challenge broadly and the full suite of the issues it presents is something that he feels we need to do for his children and for the world, and that it can be an opportunity as well for helping to revive the U.S. economy. Now, I've been privileged as well to work in both the public sector and the private sector, and one thing that I've repeatedly seen is that the U.S. has always been a leader in grappling with environmental issues and in leading the world to finding solutions. And so I'm in many ways inspired for my children and for the things that I can contribute to the next generation to help to promote that U.S. leadership. I think it's time that we really exercise that and demonstrate the ways in which we can address these challenges.
Good. Richard.
So since you ask about personal things, I can use the word I, which I wouldn't otherwise want to do. So I would say that I consider myself to be very lucky because I had the chance to work on problems of climate change which are existential, but what I bring to it is a background in finance and 30 years in the private sector. And I can see very easily, having come in from the outside, that a lot of the policies and approaches we've taken really need to be changed. Because if we really want to think big and get things done, we have to harness markets. And so that's something that actually I know something about, because we have market failures. The problems we have aren't about technology. They aren't often really about economics. They're about bad market signals and regulations that don't achieve what we want it to achieve. And so these are things that actually government can do. Government can stand in the way. The reason, if we didn't have market failures, we wouldn't need government. So the question here is, how can we think about using the role of government to remove market failures? And the last thing I'm going to say is that while we're talking about climate change and talking about electricity and resiliency, all the water resource issues, we have to take that into account. And some of the things that we're going to invent, as it were, in terms of processes of the role of government, how we harness markets, what are the new financing instruments that we will need to develop. All these things, again, are doable. These are things that can be applied not only to climate change, but to other kind of market failure problems. So healthcare problems in some ways, why don't people take care of themselves better? It's sort of similar to why don't we do more energy efficiency? So there are some things that we can learn, same thing in education. So we have a chance to solve a whole range of problems, I think, by working on this.
It's an excellent last question. Now we have just some concluding remarks from Amy Davidson.
Thanks, Brian, and thank you to our terrific panel. That was terrific. This has really been an inspiring morning for us all, I hope. This is the 5th year that we've hosted Climate Week NYC, thanks to Swiss Re as our founding partner, and we've watched it grow bigger and better every year. In terms of the amazing leaders who participate, the numerous high-quality events throughout the city all week, as well as the level of interest from businesses, government, civil society, media, and citizens across the city, and the country, and this year with our live stream, the world. Climate Week NYC has a key achievement. As the recession took hold of the world and as action on climate became stuck in endless debates and polarized politics, Climate Week NYC, thanks to all of you, kept the spotlight on the urgent need for climate action. It kept the discussion going, even during the times when almost no one was talking about climate. With its powerful vision of a better, smarter, cleaner, and more prosperous low-carbon world, Climate Week NYC reaches dozens of millions of people every year. And turning this vision into action is what Climate Week is all about, acting as catalysts for change. Here in the US, Climate Week NYC has contributed to the President's renewed commitment to address climate change. It has supported Mayor Bloomberg's visionary policies for a more sustainable, resilient New York City. And it's been the platform for our corporate and subnational government partners to ramp up their emissions targets and sustainability efforts. I want to thank all of you, our sponsors, our speakers, participants, and partners, not only for what you do to make this event a success, but even more for the important work you do throughout the year to get us closer and closer to that vision of a low-carbon, healthy, secure, and prosperous world for our children. And I want to leave us with a challenge for the next year. Let us not be satisfied with what has already been accomplished, because we know that the science tells us it's just not enough. But let us strive towards even greater and more ambitious action. Let's be bolder leaders. Let's take more risks, alone and together, because the tipping point for change is within our reach.